Well, talking about the feeling of nostalgia this week has got us on all the feels for this topic and both enlivening you with it and protecting you from it.
Yeah, so in today's minisode, we're going to get triggered, but don't worry, you probably won't. Stay tuned.
Do you want what you want sooner rather than later? Do you find yourself growing more effectively in environments where people are growing alongside you? Well, we have the conference for you.
Do you love going to events as much as we do? Then you want to be in the room for the Further Faster conference happening October 29th and October 30th in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Now, the Further Faster conference is headlined by our dear friend, mentor, and business partner, Joseph McClendon III. And trust us, you're going to want to be in the room.
This is 2 days jam-packed of material that will help you grow personally and professionally. And if you're wondering how to make $1 million in 10 years, you have to be in the room to hear the strategy that Joseph is going to share. It is phenomenal.
Go to neuroencoding.com/FFC to learn more about the Further Faster conference coming at the end of October.
We hope to see you in Vegas. And now back to the show.
You're enjoying this episode on Angel Phoenix Productions Podcast Network. To explore a complete lineup of quality programs and media production services, head on over to angelphoenix.com or like our Facebook page at facebook.com/Angel Phoenix Productions.
All right, we have a really cool topic for you today where we're just going to quickly go over some triggers for nostalgia. Now, this will help you to identify if maybe nostalgia is at play for you in your decision making, because once we understand where we're being triggered with nostalgia, we can have more consciousness over it, or hey, we can lean in if we want more of that feeling, but doing it consciously.
Now, one of the biggest ways to trigger nostalgia is through our sensory
sensory awareness.
Sensory awareness, yeah. All of my 5 different fields of senses. And one for us that is particularly strong is that of smell. And I bet you've had this happen to you as well, that you haven't smelled something in a decade plus, and you smell it and instantly you are transported to a room, to a car, to a place, to a vacation, to a person, maybe a perfume that your parent or your grandparent wore, or a smell. You know, I remember distinctly my first experience with that. We were at a dinner party. I was probably 12, and they asked if I wanted Russian dressing, and I was like, I've never had Russian dressing before. And they pass it over, and the smell hits my face, and I am like instantly 6 years old at my old best friend's house, the Trent house. I'm looking around. I instantly remember that they used to serve Russian dressing with those salads, and it was like that instant remembering that feeling, that rush of emotions, both on that personal level and then remembering a social relationship. If you listen to the main episode, you know there's those different areas of nostalgia, but our senses, our physical senses like smell, can be a big trigger for nostalgia.
Now let's take the physical sense of taste, and not as a conscious trigger of nostalgia, but an unconscious trigger of nostalgia. Now I want you to think about your favorite dish, right? Think about your favorite dish from your favorite restaurant and go back to the very first time that you ever decided that this dish was your favorite. Now, has the taste of that dish, is it still 105% as good as it was the first time that you tasted it and that you experienced it? Now, it could be 99%, 98%, but the likely chance of it being as good as that first time is fairly low, unless you've got maybe a different cook back there or a different recipe or something happening. But we work in restaurants, we know, because what we see is that people end up coming in and ordering the same thing over and over and over again. Now, this isn't always because of nostalgia. Sometimes it's just you like what you like, but sometimes it's because that first time they had such an incredible experience that now it became a habitual thing that plays out even though they don't think about it.
How about auditory nostalgia? We talked a little bit about this in yesterday's minisode with the presence of the exploitation of nostalgia in pop culture. But hear a song you haven't heard since high school and you're like, ooh, you
from the window to the wall.
Well, and we'll even say in those moments, right? Oh, I am 17 with the windows down, cruising down Virginia Street, right? Like it takes you back. So you hear something and it can give you that feeling, almost that yearning for better days, for those past gone, more simplified times, which is one of those effects and impacts of nostalgia. So knowing that our senses can get triggered. Now, obviously, visually is the way most of us take in the majority of our information, at least the information that we give conscious attention to. But visually, we can get triggered for nostalgia through seeing pictures or certain routes, right? If you drive a certain route down a street you haven't been down in a while and you're like, oh yeah, I used to ride my bike on the bricks over there and they made a sound, and you remember those times again. So we see a picture or we're in a place and we can get triggered visually for nostalgia very much.
Now, we are going to talk in the coming episode about relational nostalgia and how that can help keep people or keep people into a relationship that might be toxic for them for the sake of that nostalgia. But it is so fun to dive into these senses. You know, as Shai and I were prepping for today's episode, I told her, do you remember that TikTok video that I sent you last year that has a Christmas preview of Christmas from the 2000s and the 90s? And I literally got chills just describing the visual and nostalgia bringing video, because it is that powerful of an emotion that it can drive you forward in bad times and it can also keep you down in good.
So we hope this is getting you in the nostalgic mood, and we'll see you tomorrow on the next minisode.
This podcast was a production of Angel Phoenix Productions. Explore more episodes of this show or other great shows on the Angel Phoenix Podcast Network by visiting angelphoenix.com. The views expressed in this show do not necessarily represent those of Angel Phoenix Productions or its advertisers, and may contain language that's unsuitable for younger listeners.